Hello all, this is Halloween, and if you love Halloween as much as I do, you may want to subscribe because I'm going to be showing you how to make some awesome costumes without breaking the bank. So today's costume is going to be inspired by the famous Lizzie Borden massacres, which took place in Fall River, Massachusetts. Now, if you've not heard of Lizzie Borden, back in 1892, she was accused of brutally murdering her stepmother and her father. It inspired a local legend in the community of Fall River and the jump rope song. Lizzie Borden took an axe, gave her mother 40 whacks. When she saw what she had done, she gave her father 41. Let's get started. So for this costume, it's a pretty easy one to throw together. You can find, I have an 1800s style dress, which was purchased about 4 years ago. It was one of the last birthday gifts I asked my mother. She said, what do you want for your birthday? I said, this dress. We found it online for around $50. It's a full length, goes all the way to the feet dress. It just depends on what you want. So it's going to range between 50 to 150 probably for a basic one. This one was only around $50. I have a dickie. What I do with this dickie is I put it up under, if you don't know what a dickie is, it became popular, I think, in the 80s. It's just a fake shirt people would wear underneath another blouse to make it look like more of a layered look. It also was a more decorative thing. But I take this dickie, I put it underneath the actual dress. You may be able to find a dickie online that's ruffled like this one. And what I did was I cut out the ruffle part, and I just where I cut, I just put felt over top of it. And when I have this closed, I'm just gonna throw over that lace like that so that it comes over the dress and gives it a little bit more of a decorative feel, a decorative look. I added a brooch to the top. I have done this costume before, so there is a little bit of fake blood still on the dickie from the last time I wore it. I put a little fake blood on for effect. That's all it is. It's just I added my own decorative dickie to it, and I put a brooch there at the top. So those things I already had. I just bought the dress for 50 bucks. And for shoes, I have these. Now, if I were going to purchase shoes like this for the costume, I'd probably get all black or a gray color. I'm using these just to give you an idea of what kind of shoes they wore back then. It was usually a boot. Most of the time they were lace up with the wing tips, what they wore back in the 1800s. So I'm just gonna go ahead and wear those. They're not gonna show anyway, so it doesn't really matter a whole lot. Here's my little bobblehead Lizzie Borden. You're gonna know the story behind this little bobblehead. And of course, a hatchet. Now they sell these plastic ones at the Halloween store during Halloween time. This one's covered in fake blood and everything. It's actually rubber, but it looks real. I actually purchased this at the Lizzie Borden house in their gift shop. I have that just as a little prop. And just to give my dress some flair, I do have a black slip. This is another thing that I already had when I bought the dress. This was my wedding dress slip. It goes all the way to the floor, and it's just a little frilly, and I think I got it online, probably Amazon, for like 20 bucks. It wasn't very expensive at all. If you noticed in the introduction, I had my hair in rollers. I'm gonna do a little vintage styled hair with the part down the middle like Lizzie had, and I think I'm going to do her makeup in black and white. So let's go ahead and start our makeup. If you'll notice, my hair is all kinky curly. There's only one method of curling that works for my hair. I don't know if it's because it's like a medium thickness. I don't have real thick hair, but for whatever reason, all I can ever do is do sponge curlers because that's all that works in my hair. I dampen my hair. Most of the time I sleep with them in, and it stays for as long as I need it to. But if I try any other method, it goes flat soon as I walk out the door. I'm in Florida, so the humidity kills my hair most of the time. I also sprayed it with some Aquanet, and I'm going to just style it in like a 19 or an 1800s sort of style. Hers was very kinky, like up front, and I have it parted down the middle like hers was. Hers was parted down the middle. And in the back, I'm just going to do any old thing because it doesn't really matter. I just want the front to kind of look Borden-esque, if you know what I mean. So I'm not even combing it that much because I don't want to lose a lot of the curl. I'm just kind of barely, lightly combing through it. And then I'm just going to spray. I've still got that part, and it's just kind of curled on the sides. And any picture that you see of her, it's pretty much like that. So I'm just using the trusty old Aqua Net. Nothing special. Things like $1 or something a can. I bought it a long time ago, and it's lasted for a long time because I don't use it that much. So I would imagine it was like a French twist style or something that she had going on. They don't really emphasize that when they're doing the how her hair looked during the axe murders, if you know what I mean. So just go with your instinct, whatever you think looks like it's from that time period, and you'll be good. We get the main ingredients, the long dress, the axe. We're gonna have some spray on blood, which is awesome. One of my favorite things for this costume. The spray blood. I'm running low. I get liberal with it sometimes. So the spray blood, this one came from Spirit Halloween. It's those pop-up Halloween stores. I guess everyone has them. They're kind of seasonal, but you can probably get it online. You can get it from Ben Nye. You can get it from Mayron, eBay, Amazon, wherever. I think I'm going to try and do a little bit of a French twist and leave my hair kind of curl there in the front. And that'll be Lizzie Borden. It's very easy. It's so kinky. I'm probably gonna have to comb it out a little more to get the twists going. But if you'll see, I'm already kind of looking like that's the style. So my hair is done, and it didn't take long. It took like 2 seconds for me to just put it up. I'm gonna spray it so that all the hairs stay in place where I want them to be. And then I have done like a French twist in the back, and I'm not sure if you can see it very well. Very easy. Just twist it and pin it, and it looks very nice, very much that time, so I'm pleased with it. So what I have for makeup here is just the Ben Nye in Cloud White Aqua. I've got the Ben Nye, I've got a little of the cream because I'm gonna mix. When you see black and white photos, it's not like white, it's like a gray and then a lighter gray. It's different shades it's 50 shades of gray. That's exactly what it is. I've only once done black and white makeup, and I did okay with it, but I feel like I could have done a better job. This will be my second time, so I should be better. And of course, I've got my water to activate the aqua paint. And I also have the Ben Nye in gray in the aqua as well. We'll see where this goes. Don't forget, you'll need your Ben Nye Final Seal or barrier spray if you're getting the Mayron products. And that's just to seal on your makeup. Sometimes I don't even use that because I'm just doing this for you. I'm not going out. It's not Halloween or anything like that. So, well, every day is Halloween if you're me. But you know what I mean. Like, I'm not going to be going out tonight dressed as Lizzie Borden or anything, so I probably won't need it. So I'm going to take my sponge now. I'm going to dampen it. We'll start with the white. Lizzie Borden was very plain. She ended up being an old maid. She never ended up getting married. She didn't wear a lot of makeup. She wasn't really a flashy person. Even in her teens and when she was, going out and partying, she just was very natural beauty. So I think I decided to do the black and white just because it's going to be something. I'm giving you something and not just, hardly any makeup and a hairstyle that takes 2 seconds. So we're doing this together, and I think it'll be all right. I'm going to mix the gray and white, I think, the aquas together to try and get that different color of gray, and that it's not just white, like stark white. That's not how black and white photographs are. And I think the last time I did black and white, it was actually for a Lucy episode, the one that's called Lucy Does a Television Commercial, and that would be the Vitamita Vegemin episode. But the actual name of the episode is Lucy Does a Television Commercial. And I was that one year, and I went as black and white, and it turned out all right. You're getting attempt number 2. Should be a lot better. I think I'm actually just mixing it right in the thing, which is fine. Yes, this is kind of what we're gonna go for. Not real white. It's more of a really light gray. But in order to get that, you gotta dip into the white first. So that's kind of what we're doing. It probably looks more white to you just because of the way the lighting is. But it's actually, it looks exactly how I wanted it to. So we're doing good so far. Yay! I love it when that happens. So my intent was to tell you the story of when I went to Boston. It was absolutely my 100% most favorite trip of all. A funny story. I mean, every part of it was just awesome. What had happened was my husband had been deployed and he wasn't going to be back for 7 months. So I was around here losing my mind. I started being a ghost tour guide and things like that just to keep myself occupied. But I was like, man, I really want to go somewhere and do something. Even though he was deployed and it wasn't really a fun trip, he's been and seen so many places. So it got me thinking, man, it would be really cool if I could just go somewhere while he was gone, and it'll help me get my mind off of him being gone, and I can take a little trip for myself. So I talked to him about it, and I said, you know, do you mind if I just use your Sky Miles to take a trip for myself? It was coming up on the anniversary of the Lizzie Borden massacres, and I already had it in my head that if he said yes, I was going to Boston on the anniversary of the Lizzie Borden massacres. That just sounded like my kind of fun. So he agreed. He said, yeah, sure. He didn't mind. I was like, oh my God, this is so awesome. I started booking everything right away. And when I'm booking my trips, I always look for obviously the most affordable places to stay and things like that. I don't want to break the bank just on lodging, because the way I think about it is you're not going to be spending much time. If you're doing it right, you're not going to be spending a whole lot of time at the hotel. You're going to be spending more of your time out sightseeing and stuff. So all I need is a bed and a shower. It doesn't really matter where it is. I should have given that a little more thought, at least with my first stop. But when I booked my hotels for the trip, one of the places that I stayed, it was called the Found Hotel. If you're from Boston, you know about this place. The Found Hotel was actually, it turned out to be more of a hostel situation, even though when I booked online, it showed me a bedroom, like a regular hotel. So I booked everything, scheduled everything, and the way I had it was I was going to spend one night at this Found Hotel, and then the other nights I was staying 2 nights in Salem, and then I was going to head to Fall River to visit the Lizzie Borden house, and where Lizzie Borden was buried, and the whole Borden family is actually buried there at the Oak Grove Cemetery, right down the street from the house. So I figured I didn't need a whole lot of time in Fall River, so I just kind of dedicated one day to Fall River. It was Sunday. So Sunday morning, first thing, is when I went to Fall River. Everything was booked and scheduled, and I was ready to go. I get to Boston, of course I lose my mind. I go to the Found Hotel, obviously, first of all. That's the first thing I had to do, was just at least get checked into my hotel. I go up to the front counter, and they give me this key that said bed D or something to that effect. I'm like, bed D? I'm like, hold on a second. How many beds are in this room? I just knew it was going to be a bunk bed situation. And if it was a top bunk, I knew I was in trouble. First of all, I've not felt comfortable about getting up on top bunks since I was just a little kid. I got a little bit of a height issue. I got a little bit of vertigo going on, and I'm just not good with heights like that. That aren't controlled, where there's nothing holding on to you. And I'm 38 at this time. So I get this key and I go up to my room, and I kid you not, I'm in a top bunk and there's people already in there, and I'm like, this is so freaking weird. Anyway, I just put my stuff away and I went out on the town. I'm trying to get to these places before they close, book tours and things like that, maybe that I didn't know about prior to, and just, you know, going to different places, trying to find where there's karaoke and all these things. And Boston is such a beautiful city. It's big old buildings and narrow pathways, and it looks like it's right out of a Tim Burton movie, kind of. It's just so cool. I just loved it. There's so much history there, and it preserves its history. There's old graveyards just kind of everywhere, and it's just awesome. I just loved it so much. Let me stop talking for a second. So you see how I'm kind of like a light gray color, which is perfect. That's actually what black and white looks like in a photograph. It's not real white. It's more of a light gray. So that's what we're doing here. I'm gonna go up and get a little lighter on my cheekbones and like my nose that sticks out. Make sure I get into the corners of my nose and stuff. Some very light gray color. I'm gonna do my hands too later before we get costumed up. What we're trying to get, and all I did was I just mixed the two makeups, and I just did it right there in the container, and it makes that cool light gray color. Now I'm just going to do like what would be a shadow. I'm not even gonna say blush because she really literally didn't wear hardly any makeup. More of where the shading or the shadowing would be on my face. So kind of in the dents of where my cheekbones are, around my eyes a bit, maybe just a little bit, you know, in any areas that there would be generally shading around my hairline, things like that. I need to kind of just get right up under my eyes. I think I'm just going to do that with gray, because you would naturally have a shadow under your eyes anyway. So I'm just doing my gray under my eye. So where was I? So I get all checked into my hotel and everything, and I go out, and I'm out. Like, I'm looking at graveyards. I went to an Irish pub. I mean, I was out and just having a good time. And if you've never been on a trip by yourself, don't be afraid to do that at some point in your life, because it was the most liberating. And not that I don't love going on trips with my husband. I totally love it. I mean, we have a great time together, and we like doing all the same things. So that's fun too. But if you haven't been on a trip by yourself, it's just, it's a bucket list thing to do in life, because it's just, there's no ties. There's no asking, hey, what do you want to eat? Oh, I don't want to eat that. You know, it's you yourself doing whatever you want. And it's so just awesome. I used to always think too, going on vacation and trips that they would cost so much money, and they're really not that bad. And especially if you shop around for the great deals, or go when it's not a holiday, or, you know, you can find pretty good deals going places. And I just never knew that. I never even tried, because I always just assumed that travel was expensive. So do yourself a favor, go on a trip by yourself. I was just having the time of my life. Of course, that went well into the night. I had some drinks, I went to karaoke. I was okay. I made it back to the Found Hotel in a city I've never been to, and I was fine. You know, we have Google Maps on our phone and everything these days. No excuse if you get lost, you know? I go to get up, it's probably late at night, it's probably midnight, 1 o'clock, I would say, in the morning. And I go up to my room, and just like I thought, the nightmare occurred. I'm trying to hoist myself up into this top level twin-sized bunk bed, and the problem was the stairs only went up to like the edge of the bed. There was nothing to hold on to once you were up there. There was not any kind of handle on the wall. There was no, the ladder didn't go up past the bed. So you had to kind of hoist yourself up into the bed. I lost balance or something, and I just went down, thunk, 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 down each step and onto the floor. And I was on that floor moaning and groaning for probably an hour or two. Nobody ever checked on me, nothing like that. After about an hour or two, I'm assuming that's about how long it was, because I couldn't get up. Like, I was in pain. Nobody even cared. I figured I better get myself up or people are going to get up in the morning and think that I'm dead laying here. So I'm sure they heard what ensued, what went down, you know. So I get myself up, somehow hoist myself up into the bed, only using one arm this time because the other one is non-functional. Didn't realize that at the time. Just thought, oh, that kind of hurts. So in the morning I get up and there's this huge bump like on my wrist, and it was on my right hand too. Huge bump, and my wrist is like, I can't move it. It's painful to even move it. So I go and check out of the hotel, and I had planned to head to Salem that day. And that's what I do. I check out of the hotel, but I wasn't headed quite to Salem just yet. Had to head to the emergency room first. So I'm like, do you have a hospital around here? Of course, they were like, yeah, actually Tufts is right around the corner. So I was like, great. I got an Uber or whatever to take me there to Tufts. They did x-rays and everything. They said, yeah, you shattered your wrist. They used the word shattered, which was terrifying because I'd only, at this point in my life, only broken one bone in my life, and it was just a fracture. So using the word shattered, I'm like going, what did I do to myself? I'm going to need to have like full-on surgery. They were actually even suggesting surgery, or that I may need surgery once I got home. I was in the emergency room for 4 hours. I'm in a place I've never been, having to learn how to drive a car with one arm, you know, and my right arm's not working, so I'm having to turn my key with my left hand and all this stuff. I'm like, oh, God help me. Please let me make it. You know, all right and everything. I didn't have any problems with directions or anything like that. I had everything right there on Google Maps on my phone. Took me right over to Salem. So I'm all bandaged up, of course. They didn't put me in a sling. It wasn't even a hard cast. They just made a soft cast. They said you're gonna have to get whatever else done when you get back home. This is all we can do for you right now. It was basically 2 hard panels and then the soft, the athletic, you know, the stretchy stuff that they wrapped around. So I was like, great. I wish they would have at least given me a sling because I was having to hold it up, because if you've ever shattered your wrist or a bone or anything like that, and then the weight or whatever of your arm even is hanging down like that, all the blood goes to that area and it's throbbing. So I had to hold it up like this, like my whole trip pretty much, or have it up somehow. Hold it up myself, whatever. So I'm headed to Salem now. So if you've ever been to Boston, Salem is in 45 minutes one direction, and 45 minutes in the opposite direction is Fall River, and I had planned to go to both. It's really the perfect situation. But anyway, I get to Salem, and I'm looking all over for my hotel. I can't find my hotel anywhere. And I hadn't had any problems with directions or anything up till now. Like, where is this hotel? I had accidentally booked myself to stay in Salem, Virginia hotel instead of in Salem, Massachusetts. Can anything else go wrong on this trip? I'm still having a blast. I get on the phone and, you know, I let them know what happened. I booked at the wrong hotel. And I managed to find another hotel that I could stay at in Salem, which was very accommodating. I don't even remember which hotel it was now. It was one of the regular ones, Hilton or something like that. I stayed there. And it's right just outside of Salem, so that's good. My doctor at the time, prior to me going to Salem, had told me, oh, when you get to Salem, you've got to make sure that you go and park at the train station, the Salem train station, and take the train into Salem, because you don't have to pay for parking at the train station. And if you go into town, parking's very expensive, and it's free. You can stay all day. The train that takes you into Salem is only like $1 or $2 for the pass for the full day. So I was like, hell yeah. So once I got the whole hotel situation cleared up, I think I rested for a while, because now I too had to do my makeup with my left hand, and it took a while for me to get ready. So I rested for a while, and then I put makeup on and went into Salem for the first time. And it was everything I was hoping it would be. It was just awesome. It's definitely Halloween every day there. And I was just like, it was just so cool. The coolest experience ever. At the time when I finally made it into Salem that night, it was already like dinner time. I had spent the entire day getting my wrist bandaged up and my hotel taken care of for the most part. And then I took a big like rest or nap. And then by the time I get there, it's dinner time. So I ended up eating at a restaurant, had the fish and chips at another Irish pub. I went to 2 Irish pubs there, and it was really good. But I was so exhausted, and I was like, I shouldn't have been, but I was taking like 3 Aleve an hour just to subdue the pain that was going on in my arm. And it had been a huge day, so I just ended up going home. I'm like, okay, now I know what to do. You know, I'm gonna go to the Salem train station. I'll buy my pass for the day, and I can park for free. So the next day was pretty much awesome because I spent the entire day in Salem, went in the morning, parked at the train station, took the train, the Salem train, into town. I just did all kinds of stuff. I saw a psychic while I was there. I went to the witches museums. I went to the old graveyards, had all kinds of good food. They have a haunted house in town. I went into that, checked that out. The haunted house is just a bunch of people jumping out at you in a really dark space. They had a Halloween museum, Halloween stores. I was in heaven. I was in Halloween heaven. I didn't end up leaving town until later that evening. Like literally the rest of my trip was awesome. I ended up also, while I was there, I took a ghost tour. Of course, I have to go on a ghost tour. The whole ghost tour, I'm like this the whole time, so they always think I have a question. I'm like, no, it's my arm, you know? So during the ghost tour, I'm like this like the whole time. They always thinking I have a question. But the ghost tour was awesome. Everything, there's not one single thing about Salem that I did not like. It's my favorite place I've ever been so far, and I just loved it. This is really cool. This is when my trip started taking a turn for the better. I had shattered my wrist, but I just really didn't care. That was like not stopping me from having fun. So I go home that night. I had my day in Salem and everything, and it was awesome. I recommend it highly to anybody if you love that sort of thing. Salem's the place to be. So I go home that night. It's probably around 10. I was really tired. I thought if I get a really good night's sleep, I can probably have a good day tomorrow. And that was when I was going to Lizzie Borden house. So I really didn't want anything to mess that up. I wanted to be up early and be, you know, there at the Borden house at, you know, early in the morning. So I get up the next morning, I get ready very early, drive to Fall River, and I'm there by 9 o'clock in the morning, and there's something going on. Mind you, this is the anniversary of the Lizzie Borden massacre. I did not know. I thought it was going to be like her house, a museum I can go visit. I knew it was a bed and breakfast, but I didn't realize, you know, I thought it was just like a museum. You could go in and visit during the day. Had no idea it was a whole thing. They do a reenactment of the day of the murders, and it's a whole production, and they do it all year round. But on this particular day, August 4th, which is the anniversary of the massacres, and when I wanted to be there, they sell out of tickets. And I'm going, tickets? Like, I didn't know you needed tickets for this. So I see all this going on, and there's actors dressed like the characters, you know, Lizzie Borden, the uncle, stepmom, all of that. They've got actors for everybody. They don't have anybody obviously playing the dad. The dad is just like a dummy they have laid out onto the couch and everything when you go on the tour. But you have to have tickets for it. And I didn't have tickets. So I go up, I'm like, what's going on here? And they're like, you know, there's these, you know, the tents, they're selling Lizzie Borden artwork and things like that. It's like a huge event going on outside of the house. And they're like, well, today's the anniversary of the massacre. I'm like, yeah. I'm going, yeah, I know that, duh. They were like, you don't have tickets? And I was like, I didn't really know you needed tickets for this. I just thought it was a museum. She was like, no, you need tickets. I'm pretty sure we're sold out because it's the anniversary of the massacre. Now, this is the lady that basically plays dead. She plays the stepmom that's talking to me about all this stuff. Like, oh my God, I didn't know that. She was like, well, go over to the gift shop. She said that's where they sell the tickets, but I'm pretty sure we're sold out. I was like, crap. And then they probably saw poor pitiful me with the freaking, my arm was all busted up, but I was dressed in like an 1800s style attire because I dress up for everything. Even if I'm not part of anything, I like to dress up for the occasion. They probably felt bad for me. I go over to the gift shop where they're selling the tickets. They didn't open till 10. I was there at 9, so there was time to kill. Well, I probably was there around 9:30. Anyway, I had a little bit of wait. Everybody's talking about, oh my God, yeah, we're from here. I booked this online and all these things. And I'm going, crap, how did I not know this? So the person gets there to open up the gift shop, and there's a couple standing right in front of me that goes in before me, and they want tickets too for the day. They too came from a long way. They weren't from Boston. They had traveled to get there for this. They got turned down, and I'm like, crap. You know, it's just me by myself. I figure I'll try anyway. I'm like, you don't have any tickets? They were like, no, sorry, we're all sold out for the day. I was like, crap. I was so upset. I was like, are you sure it came all the way from Florida? He's like, well, that couple came from somewhere too. I'm so sorry. I was like, oh my gosh. So I just dropped like $83 in the gift shop. I bought some really cool golf balls that said, keep hacking away, for my dad. You know, I bought my fake axe, my bobblehead. I was like, well, if I can't get in, I'm going to get everything I can. You know, I had got some magnets, spent a good little chunk of money in there that I probably shouldn't have spent for things I didn't really need, but I wanted. So, I figured I'd just head out of there and go to the cemetery. Well, the lady that I had spoken to before, the lady that plays Lizzie Borden's stepmom, she had this big blood splatter in the back of her head. It was awesome. She goes, they didn't sell you any tickets? I said, no, I'm just gonna go to the cemetery. It's fine, whatever. And she's like, no, wait a second. She goes into the gift shop. And I'm like, okay, I'm waiting here with my stuff. I said, I'm just gonna put this stuff in my car. She's like, okay, just hang tight. I'll be right back. She goes and talks to the guy in the gift shop and talks him into letting me stay and selling me a ticket for the whole performance that they do, a reenactment of the day of the murders. I couldn't believe it. I was so excited. I was like, this is so awesome. Because I went there specifically just for that reason. I mean, yes, Salem and all of that too, but Lizzie Borden was the main reason I wanted to go to Boston. I just was like tearing up. I couldn't believe it. And they were like, you know, I got to talk to them a little bit before my tour and everything. And I told them, you know, my husband was deployed. I had shattered my wrist on this trip, and I had just come here for this day and all these things. I'm from Florida. My husband's going to be gone till January, thereabouts. This was in August. So they were like, oh my God, you know, thank you for your husband's service and all these things. And then one of the I'm sitting on the steps of the Lizzie Borden house, and the main actor, he's the host basically, and him and the girl that plays Lizzie, they're dating. They're the cutest couple ever. He looks like that guy from Shawshank Redemption, like the main guy. They were just such a cute couple. But he comes out and he greets me. He's like, hey, I heard you were, you know, your husband was deployed and all that. He said, why don't you come in? I said, really? He's like, yeah, we haven't started the tour yet, but come on in and I'll show you some things about the Lizzie Borden house that you may not have seen or don't know about. I was like, what? I'm getting a private tour before the tour of the Lizzie Borden house. Things couldn't get any better, or so you might think. As he's taking me there, he takes me down into the basement where the murder weapon was found, where Lizzie, they believe it to be Lizzie Borden's face can be seen in the bricks of the house, because when you take it, you can't see it with the naked eye, but if you take a picture of it, you can see her face. And this is down in the basement and everything. They don't take people down there because it's a high liability, and the steps are so steep that they're too worried that somebody might get injured going down there. So I could totally understand that, but I got to go down there and it was awesome. Not only that, just when you think it can't get any better than this, they invited me, since I was kind of dressed in 1800s fashion anyway, they invited me to play the part of Lizzie Borden's best friend in their reenactment. They said, you don't have to say anything if you don't want, but you can, you know, you remember Lizzie's best friend, the one that saw her light her dress on fire and all this, you can play her in this reenactment. I was like, what? I didn't say anything, you know, because I didn't want to really, I'm not a paid actor there for that particular thing. And I didn't want to, you know, try and jump in there and be saying stuff when it wasn't really my gig. It's theirs. So I kind of didn't feel right about saying anything, but I was there kind of like comforting, you know, the girl that plays Lizzie Borden and sitting there playing the best friend. And it was awesome. Just when you thought it couldn't get any better, they let me do like 2 performances with them. And then when they were going to lunch, they invited me to lunch in the basement with the cast, the full cast. And it was a catered lunch. They had like sandwiches brought in. And I sat there and ate lunch with the cast. They even invited me to dinner, but I had to, I was due back in Boston because my last night I was staying on a sailboat that rented out rooms of the sailboat as kind of like an Airbnb. And they said I had to be there at a certain time, so I couldn't actually have dinner with them. But it was just like the greatest experience of my whole life. And I got to talk with the cast, and they even invited me to take private pictures with them, you know, after lunch and stuff. Like, I hated to have to leave, you know, but I still had to make it to the cemetery and back to the Boston Harbor where I was staying that night on the sailboat. Then I went to the Oak Grove Cemetery where Lizzie Borden and her family are buried. Got to visit her gravesite and the whole Borden family's gravesite. And it was an amazing cemetery, huge and so historic. It was just a beautiful cemetery. So then after the cemetery, I spent a good amount of time there just walking around. So after that, I just headed back towards Boston and had a great time in Boston. There was live music there in the Boston Harbor. It was a beautiful, breezy, cool night. And it was all lit up. It was right, you know, in the middle of the city next to the aquarium. The aquarium had these big, you know, out in front, the seals were swimming around that you could watch. I arrived there, you know, with my suitcase in tow, you know, ready to check into the sailboat. And that was an awesome experience. Of course, I go onto the sailboat and I have to go down these very steep stairs. I'm being extremely careful. I get into my room. It's bunk beds. But I'm in a bunk bed room all by myself, so I could throw my stuff up on the top bunk, and I wasn't doing that again. So I stayed on the bottom bunk. It was warm inside the sailboat. They just have fans. It wasn't air conditioning or anything like that. But it was so cool. I mean, that night I went and had oysters on the Boston Harbor at a restaurant. They were so fresh and delicious coming right out of the harbor. I had like a tuna stack or some other kind of seafood at another restaurant. So I did a little tour de restaurants there, seafood tour. And then my trip, you know, the next day ended. Oh, it was such a great trip though. I had the time of my life, and I can't wait to take my husband back, and we're going to go on a trip together and just show him everything that I saw, because that is the ultimate trip. Go to Boston, and 40 minutes one way to Salem, 40 minutes the other way to Lizzie Borden House. It's worth every penny, and to do it by yourself, it's just amazing. So anyway, that's my Lizzie Borden story. We're almost done with our makeup. I just wanted to tell you guys that because it was so awesome. I wanted to share with you so that perhaps you can do it. And I'll tell you one more thing, as if it couldn't get any better. So on my flight to Boston, there was these people on my flight into Boston, which I never realized until after this happened. So when I get on my flight going back to Florida from Boston, I sit right next to this awesome couple, Pat and Mo. So Patrick and Maureen. They were the coolest couple ever. Probably in their late 50s, I guess. they sat next to me on my trip home, and she and I happened to be into the same stuff. Cemeteries, her and her husband stay in haunted places. She's all into that. And we had a lot more in common than even just that. She was amazing. We had a 3-hour conversation. The flight home seemed like it was 30 minutes because we could not stop talking. We were showing each other all of our pictures of all the haunted places we've been and cemeteries. And I made a lifelong friend on that trip home. But when I was reviewing all my footage and pictures that I had taken, I took a picture on the flight there as well. They were on the same flight because I saw the back of their heads and I was like, oh my God, it's Patrick and Maureen. They flew there with me and they flew back with me. And now I've got a lifetime friend that I can talk to about cemeteries that I've been to and places that I'm going. And she talks to me about places that she's going and cemeteries that she's been to. And it's so awesome. It just brings joy just to talk about it. And I'm glad I have you guys now to talk to about it. So I'm almost done with my makeup. Like I said, I'm going to take one of these cool things that I love so much, and I'm going to do my upper lip with the gray cream. That's not it. Here it is. I hadn't opened it up yet. In pictures, it's going to look really good. And I've got to also do my eyebrows, which is what I normally do first, but I started running my mouth, so. Well, I did that again. I mashed my lips together like you always do. That's okay. We'll whiten them. I gotta do my ears because they're actually gonna be showing. So that's like my favorite story of my whole life, by the way. Like to tell, and just like, because it's just like one good thing kept happening after another. After my initial, you know, couple of things that happened, it was just, you know, I just didn't let anything get me down. I was like, you know, I'm doing this for me, and I'm not gonna let anything bring me down. And it didn't. I don't want to mess up my cheekbones here, but I'm thinking I went over my cheekbones a little bit with the white because I feel like it just got out of control. But I was yapping, so that happened. So while the white is wet, I'm just gonna redo it a little bit and hopefully it'll blend a little bit better. Yeah, it is. It's blending more. So white's still wet, so just blending more. That's what I want, more of a blended look. So I said I was gonna do my waterline with this white grease pencil. There's that. And then I'm just gonna do some just regular, just kind of darkening my eyebrows. I've got a black pencil here. And I'm just gonna darken with black pencil. They weren't really plucking their eyebrows, you know, back then. So we're just gonna, they were a little unruly, if you will. I want to try and darken my top lip a little bit with this black pencil. I just kind of want my bottom lip to be noticeably lighter. That's usually how it is. There's more shading on the top. I've got my mascara. Not that she wore makeup, but it'll, you know, just to make them look black. They don't need to be thick or bulky, just so that they kind of stand out a little bit. And just for effect, nothing says Lizzie Borden like blood splatter. So I'm gonna splatter my face. And then I'm gonna do my hands, get the rest of my costume on, and we'll take some photos. This stuff's great. And you can't hack someone up without getting blood all over you. I put a little on my dress, like in the white part, and that too. So that's Lizzie Borden. Let's get dressed. Thank you so much for joining me again today. I hope you enjoyed today's costume of the infamous Lizzie Borden, a girl known for murdering her stepmother and her father. If you don't know about Lizzie Borden, look into her. It's a very interesting murder case that happened in 1892, Fall River, Massachusetts. It's just the whole thing and everything, all of the information surrounding it was very interesting. I don't know, I'm very intrigued by Lizzie Borden, I guess you could say. It was interesting because she kind of she kept going to the same church even after the whole murder thing happened. She continued to go to the same church and still hang out in the same communities and stuff. She didn't really care what anybody thought about her. And I think that professed her innocence in her mind, but people would treat her really poorly. No one would sit next to her in church. And despite all of that, she continued up until the day she died. If you haven't watched it, go ahead and check that out. There's a few different documentaries. There's one with Christina Ricci. There's one with Elizabeth Montgomery. And there are all kinds of YouTube documentaries and things like that that you could watch. But it was a really interesting case. And go to Boston sometime. It is awesome. If you love this video, there's going to be many more. Please remember to like, subscribe, and share. And I'll see you next time.